Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and checking your phone and reading a headline that says that owning your favorite asset, whether that's real estate or physical gold or Bitcoin or even just stocks, imagine that is now a federal crime. And if you don't hand all of that over to the government within 25 days, you could face 10 years in federal prison and $250,000 fine. It sounds like a dystopian movie, but it actually happened right here in the United States. On April 5th, 1933, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 6102. With the stroke of a pen, he criminalized the private ownership of gold. We're going to look at the real math behind why the government did it, how they fundamentally devalued the savings of every single American overnight, and the massive unpublicized warning sticker that this history leaves for your portfolio right now. Welcome back to the most savvy individual investors out there. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Steven Spicer, and my goal on this channel is to help you build a smarter portfolio and overcome the significant risks to which mainstream financial advice leaves you exposed. So let's dive into this one. To understand why the government took such drastic steps, we have to look at the economic layout in 1933. The country was trapped in the jaws of the Great Depression. The banking system was collapsing, bank runs were happening daily, and people were losing faith in paper currency in general. Back then, the US was on a true gold standard. Under the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, the Fed was legally required to back at least 40% of all paper currency in circulation with actual physical gold reserves. And therein lay the problem for the politicians. Because the dollar was tied to gold, the government couldn't just print an infinite supply of money to fund their new spending programs or to stimulate the economy out of deflation. If they printed more paper, they needed more gold to back it, and they were running out. So what did they do? They labeled private citizens, people who were just trying to protect their family's wealth, they labeled them as hoarders. Executive Order 6102 commanded every individual, partnership, and corporation to deliver their gold coin, bullion, and gold certificates to the Federal Reserve by May 1st of that year. In exchange, the government paid them the official statutory price of $20.67 per troy ounce in paper dollars. Seems reasonable. Now, mainstream history books frame this as a necessary, noble sacrifice to save the banking system. But let's look at the actual math of what happened next. Once the government successfully gathered up the public's gold, Congress passed the Gold Reserve Act in January of 1934, and they officially revalued the price of gold from $20.67 up to $35 an ounce. Think about that for a second, and then let me know your thoughts on Executive Order 6102 down in the comments. The gold didn't change, but the paper dollars citizens had just been forced to accept, were instantly devalued by roughly 41% against real assets. The government effectively created a multi-billion-dollar profit out of thin air for the US Treasury, entirely funded by devaluing the purchasing power of the everyday saver. Now, a quick, really important side note, a lot of people think the government went door to door ripping gold out of floorboards. They didn't. In fact, research by economists like Milton Friedman suggests that only about 20 to 25% of privately held gold coins were actually turned in. The majority of people simply ignored the order and kept their wealth hidden. Furthermore, the executive order had a few very specific exemptions. Jewelers, dentists, and industrial users could keep what they needed. You could also keep up to $100 in gold coins, and crucially, they exempted gold coins having a recognized special value to collectors, what we call numismatic or rare coins. This is why, in our research at Spicer Capital, if physical gold would make sense in a client's portfolio, we've always preferred a thoughtful allocation toward pre-1933 gold coins. These coins are historical artifacts that legally survived this recall, making them a very distinct asset class compared to modern bullion. They have other advantages as well, but we'll cover those in another video. So why are we talking about something that happened over 90 years ago? And how does this apply to your unique financial situation today? We're talking about this, and it applies because the underlying structural problem has never changed. Whenever a government faces massive debt, structural deficits, and a currency system under stress, they have very few options. They can drastically cut spending, for example, which is politically unpopular. It's difficult to do and still get reelected. Or they can change the rules of the financial system to favor the state over the saver and hope that nobody notices. In 1933, changing the rules meant confiscating physical gold and devaluing the dollar. Today, we don't operate under a gold standard, but we face an entirely new set of variables. The modern equivalent of Executive Order 6102 likely won't involve soldiers knocking on your door for gold bars. Instead, it looks like increased regulation on digital assets, shifting tax codes on retirement accounts, or the introduction of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, that give central authorities direct oversight and programmable control over your capital. If your entire wealth portfolio is sitting inside the conventional mainstream banking system, you are completely exposed to those potential systematic rule changes. The second the system faces an emergency, the menu options can change without your consent. This is why we preach a gospel of intelligently enhanced diversification. True protection isn't just about owning different stocks. Part of it is about holding assets that exist outside the traditional banking architecture, whether that's physical precious metals held in private custody, alternative assets, or private uncorrelated cash flow engines. You need assets that don't rely on a centralized counterparty to maintain their value. History doesn't always repeat itself, but it frequently rhymes. The savers who blindly followed mainstream narratives in 1933 paid a heavy, permanent price. The savers who are paying attention today are the ones taking steps to insulate themselves. And in this video, we're just talking about gold and maybe an inflation hedge. But in other videos, we talk about other parts of the mainstream narrative that can leave you trapped and put you in a bad position long term. So hopefully you'll check out those as well. If you think gold might make sense in your portfolio and want to dive deeper, there's a link at the top of the description where you can get on my calendar. Gold is one of the best ways to hedge against hyperinflation risk. To better understand that risk, you gotta watch this video. It's pretty good. I'll see you there. Take care.